My name is Sarah. I am 30 years old. I live in a small, cozy apartment in Seattle. My neighborhood is quiet, lined with maple trees, little coffee shops, and a few old bookstores. People often tell me I have a good life. I work as a graphic designer at a small studio. I have friends who care about me, and I live on my own. But lately I feel restless. There is a weight in my chest I can't shake, a feeling that something is missing. 3 years ago, I met David. He was charming, witty, and seemed to understand me in ways no one else had. We fell in love quickly, the kind of love that feels like a sudden storm. Powerful, consuming, and unforgettable. Within a year, we moved in together. At first, everything seemed perfect. I thought I had finally found someone who could fill the emptiness inside me. But as time passed, I realized something painful. I loved him not for who he was, but because he made me feel less alone. I had thought love could heal loneliness, but I learned it cannot be forced where it doesn't belong. David is the kind of man who notices everything. He remembers the songs I hum when I'm nervous, the way I stir my tea, the small habits that make me who I am. He makes breakfast on Sundays, leaves tiny notes on the counter. You are stronger than you think. He has supported me through failures, comforted me during stressful days, and tried his best to make our relationship perfect. But no matter how hard he tried, I could never meet him halfway. My heart stayed quiet, cold even. One rainy evening, we were sitting on the balcony. Rain tapped softly against the glass. David reached for my hand and said, "Sarah, I know things feel hard right now, but I believe we can get through this. I'm not going anywhere." His words made me ache. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to confess that I didn't feel love the way he did, that I had stayed with him for the wrong reasons. But I stayed silent. I didn't want to hurt him, yet by staying I hurt him every day. Weeks turned into months. I found myself lying to myself more than anyone else. I smiled when I didn't want to, laughed at jokes that didn't reach me, and pretended to care about plans I couldn't enjoy. Each morning I woke up feeling like a stranger in my own life. One night, after a quiet dinner, David asked me, "Do you see a future with me?" I froze. His question struck me like a storm. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe it. But deep down, I knew I couldn't lie anymore. I shook my head. He looked at me with a mixture of fear and understanding. "Then tell me the truth," he whispered. The next day, I sat on the couch with a heavy heart. "David, I need to be honest," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't love you the way you love me. I thought I could, but I can't. I've been holding on for the wrong reasons. You deserve someone who can give you everything, and I'm not that person." David didn't shout or argue. He just nodded, a single tear sliding down his cheek. "I felt it too," he said softly. "I hoped I was wrong. But thank you for telling me." The days that followed were quiet. We both needed space. I stayed in my apartment alone for the first time in years, and it was strangely peaceful. I began noticing little things again. The scent of coffee brewing in the morning, the sound of rain against my window, the laughter of children playing outside. I started writing again, pouring my thoughts onto paper. I wrote about love, loss, mistakes, and hope. Writing reminded me who I was. One evening I received a message from my old friend, Mia. She said, "Sarah, I've missed you. Want to grab coffee?" I agreed, sitting across from her in a tiny cafe, watching steam rise from our cups. I felt a warmth I hadn't felt in months. I told her about David, about my emptiness, about my fear of hurting him. Mia listened quietly, holding my hand. "Sarah," she said softly, "being honest is the first step. You can't live for anyone else. You have to live for yourself." Days turned into weeks. I went for long walks by the lake. I watched people walking dogs, riding bikes, drinking coffee on benches. Life was moving on, and I wanted to move with it. I signed up for a creative writing class at the community center. The class was small, just 8 people, but it became my sanctuary. I wrote about my feelings, my past, and my hopes. Slowly, I started to enjoy the act of creating again. I made new friends through the class, people who understood pain and courage in equal measure. One day, after a session, I stayed behind to talk to the instructor. "Sarah," he said, "writing is brave. It takes courage to face your own heart. I nodded. His words stayed with me. I began to understand that bravery is not always about grand gestures. It can be quiet, like admitting the truth, like leaving a life that no longer belongs to you. Months passed. I found a small studio apartment near the waterfront. I painted the walls white, decorated it with plants, and placed a small desk by the window. Each morning I brewed my own coffee, watched the sun rise over the water, and slowly I began to feel alive again. I still thought about David sometimes. I hoped he would find someone who could love him fully, the way he deserved. One evening, as I unpacked a box, I found a note he had left me before I moved out. Live fully. Be happy. Always be true to yourself. I held it close and smiled. His kindness had remained even when love had faded, and I carried that with me as I stepped into the life I wanted, the life I could choose. I learned that being brave doesn't always mean fighting. For love, it can also mean letting go. Love is precious, but freedom and honesty are just as important. And sometimes, finding yourself is the most beautiful love story you can have.